because I think anybody in their right mind would understand the principles of a league and a football framework being built upon meritocracy. That is the only reason the European Super League was not acceptable. That's the only reason. The idea that UEFA and FIFA, which by their very definition are cartels and monopolies themselves, are subsequently beyond reproach and are seated in the best interests of the game, I find very conflicting, because we've already seen what FIFA is. We've seen it for ourselves. And I don't think UEFA are too far better. I think they are a better version, and I think Seferin is a better version of some of the FIFA executives.
What are FIFA?
What are FIFA? I think they're a fiefdom. I think they're an organisation that's seated in a lack of transparency. I think it's been a conclave of decision-making processes that are deeply flawed. And I don't think that they are actually the force for good in the game that people allude to them. And if you look back into the history of them, from awarding World Cups to Argentina in 1978, to the corruption that's gone on, to the attempt to clean house, to the manner in which they operate now, I still think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I look at these Swiss-owned entities that are in situs where we can never quite see behind the framework of what they do with a great deal of trepidation. Where David Dean and everyone is right, it's undeniable that sport has to be based upon meritocracy.
Yeah.
And that was the only reason the European Super League... It was a fishing expedition from these European Super League clubs that are still in the mix to see if they could land a blow on UEFA, to see if they could get them under anti-competition laws. It was a fishing expedition. But again, I ask the question, why shouldn't there be a challenge to the cartel that UEFA have?
Yeah, but this thing's dead now, Simon, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's dead.
Now. How can it come back now?
It's dead in the guise that it should be dead in. That guise that existed, which was self-serving, was based upon legacy rather than achievement. It was a trapdoor that was closed behind, with nobody else benefiting it from besides those 12 clubs or however many clubs were going to be in the environment, including David Dean's Arsenal. That, was actually an absolute exercise in ridiculousness. Right? Now, do I think that that the reasons why Liverpool and Man United are not up for sale is because of the European Super League? Don't be so bleeding stupid. The landscape of football is about broadcasting deals. Competitions are huge revenue spinners. That's why FIFA want to have a World Club Championship. That's why they're expanding the international forum to 48 teams for the World Cups. That's why you've got UEFA changing the configuration of the Champions League and the distributions that go underneath it. But the broadcasting landscape for football is still immense. And there are still opportunities for the principles of the things I've discussed with you about Netflix of football. So the idea...
Yeah, but Simon, come on. This is one in the eye for Barcelona, Real Madrid and Juventus.
No, this is one in the eye.
They've been sent scurrying.
This is one in the eye.
UEFA and FIFA have flexed their muscles saying, hey, by the way, we're in charge of what you do and what you don't do.
UEFA and FIFA, because of the nature of the entity they signed up to, they sought to go around the rules that they willingly signed up to. Now, currently, under the auspice of the rules that they signed up to, they decided to break away from UEFA and put a breakaway competition that had no meritocracy attached to it. And by the governance of the rules they signed up to, they couldn't do it. Now, they've challenged that. They've challenged it under a particular statute and said it breaks EU anti-competition laws.
Right, so they lost.
And they've had a knockback.
Right.
So they'll come again in a different guise with a different framework and a different
principle. Well, not as long as FIFA and UEFA are around.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because ultimately things can be overcome. Currently, they're being caught in a trap that ultimately their membership of UEFA and FIFA, not so much FIFA not in this conversation.
It's more UEFA, you're right.
More UEFA, right?
But you've got to be members of UEFA.
And
you can't break away without UEFA.
And therein becomes the challenge about what they're prepared to do.
Yeah.
What are you prepared to do? I tell you what the Premier League clubs were prepared to do was jettison the Football League and form a breakaway league. So it depends what's at risk, what's at stake, how much capital is available. One of the reasons that the European Super League didn't come off the ground, not just fan resistance, not just the ridiculous nature of the cowardice of clubs that decided to participate and then didn't want to go the whole hog because they, as I use the analogy, got off the stall in the first round, didn't throw a punch, sat down and quit. Right? Why did you bother in the first place? Is the lack of financial support behind it. 5 billion was what was being put behind this. If someone comes along and puts 15, 20 billion because they can see the potential of a tournament of this scale, again, this conversation will come again. If it then becomes steeped in meritocracy, steeped in promotion and relegation, steeped in benefits that supersede that of UEFA.
Yeah.
Why would we just suggest that UEFA and FIFA sit in an environment where they're unchallengeable? Because we've seen what they're capable of.
So what do you make of this from Professor Carl Ligo?
Okay, who's he?
Jim Simon, morning. I'm a barrister and professor of law. The ruling of the Court of Justice only supports UEFA and FIFA because the Super League was a closed league, not allowing relegation promotion, and so was therefore regarded as a cartel.
And that is precisely my point.
It can come back, and UEFA and FIFA will be right in trouble when it does.
Thank you very much. That is precisely my point. That is precisely my point. The only reason anybody could have exception to this is that it was a closed shop. Because if you have exception to this when it's not a closed shop, then you must have an exception to the Champions League then. Because that's a degrading of English football by the very nature of only a certain amount of teams can participate in it, and they get all the dough. And they almost now get as much dough as participating in a tournament with 16 games as you do for playing in a tournament in the Premier League with 38 games.
But Simon, the bottom line is someone's got to control this lot and the game. The so-called giants like Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus, and the ones who control them have got to be UEFA. You've got to have some organisation at the top who say, you can do that, but
I understand the logic. If he gets up, they'll all get up. It'll be anarchy, right? I understand that, right? But I also don't believe that allowing one entity to have complete and utter unchallengeable autonomy over something is a recipe for competition to evolve. And we all know that football is going to have to keep on generating revenue because this gravy train of player salaries and the cost implications of football clubs isn't going to stop anytime soon. We also know that the questioning of distribution from UEFA by football clubs, including the Juventuses of the world, that are in a bit of a disarray at this moment in time because of their own issues, are about the amount of money that UEFA retain, about how it's distributed, which advertisers they choose to go through. But there are a variety of ways that this will come back. But the real reason why it loses the argument, and will always lose the argument, and was always going to lose the argument, is because if you're proposing a cartel, you can't then accuse UEFA of being anti-competitive, because you, by the very definition of your existence, were being anti-competitive. So it was a fishing expedition. They might have landed a blow, they might not, but it will, as sure as day follows night, it will come again.
Well, it's a fishing expedition, and they've returned to shore.
It was a sprat that caught no mackerel.
Right, okay.
Yeah.